Good evening, everyone. Uh, Welcome to this session on DocSAP PAP. Here we have with us Dr. Advait Kulkarni. He's a consultant neurologist trained from most prestigious neurology institute, NIMHANS, Bangalore, with more than 12 years of experience in neurology. He's currently working as chief neurologist at Columbia Asia Hospital, Sarjapur, Bangalore. He has 10 years of intensive clinical teaching and training experience to neurology residents, registrars, and trainees at Nimhans Hospital and Narayana Health City and the multi-speciality hospital, Narayana Multi-Speciality Hospital. Dr. Advait has extensive clinical experience in treating complex strokes, brain infections, headaches, fits, Parkinson's, neuropathy, uh, and dementia patients. He has been specially trained in pediatric neurology at NIMHANS. He has published research articles in national and international journals. He has given public awareness talks in many international and national meetings. He has special interest in spreading headache and stroke awareness, stress management through mindfulness and Vipassana meditation. He's been actively involved in teaching uh, Annapana meditation to children for more than 8 years from through Vipassana Research Institute. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us in this session. You can start the session.
Thank you, Geeta, for a warm introduction. So I am grateful to you for this opportunity. And as we all know, most of you are working for long hours and a lot of work and a lot of stress, a lot of things to do. And we all are going through a very tough situation again after the last year. That is a pandemic. I give you greetings from our hospital, Columbia Asia Hospital, Sarjapur Road, Bangalore. It is okay to feel all these emotions because as a human being, we all feel stressed or confused, anxious, bored, irritated, agitated, restless. There's a lot of uncertainty what will happen. A lot of news we have been hearing about the availability of beds, the number of cases every day. And we are going through a lot of emotions, and the whole family, the whole world is going through the same today. So it's very important to understand that all these emotions are arising and passing away. They are not permanent. This moment, if I feel very bored or anxious, maybe next moment it is something else. So we just become aware of that thing, that this situation is going to change. It is not permanent. So I'll be talking about a brief introduction about the brain's health. That is, we say healthy brain in healthy body. Importance of sleep. What is insomnia? What is sleep hygiene? A brief practice of meditation, that is mindfulness of breathing and how it helps in the brain's health, and a brief introduction about headaches and what all things to do. So the most important thing now is, as we know, we all are listening, what are the main things for brain's health, why the brain's health is so much important. And as you all know, the brain's health there is same as the body. If your mind is healthy, if you are healthy, then the brain is also healthy. This is very, very simple thing. Like whatever we do for our own emotional well-being, may be meditation, yoga, pranayama, exercise, eating healthy food, home food, balanced food, a few things which we do for others. We serve the others. Whatever we have, resources or time, we give it for others. We express gratitude towards others, and we help our family members in whatever way we can. We acknowledge them. All these things are very, very important. These are all intermingled. We cannot say that this is for the brain's health, this is for the lungs health and all that. So all these things are very, very important. But today what we are going to do is we are going to focus specifically on sleep, food and meditation. So the first thing is sleep. Correct. Before that, the most important thing, all of us are going through a weight gain because we have stopped exercising, because we can't go out. Gyms are closed, but it's extremely important to do some exercise at your home. May it be yoga, may it be eight-shaped walking, or anything, whatever you can do, because exercise has tremendous effects on our mental health. It not only increases the well-being, reduces stress level, increases energy level, increases confidence. It also improves sleep, increase self-esteem. It reduces anxiety. It leads to release of some of the neurohormones, which are feel-good hormones. So most important thing, the first thing which I have to tell you is exercise. Why are these sleep disorders important? Why is sleep so much important? Because we know it's a very, very important part of our life. If we don't sleep a day, we don't feel fresh and we can't work. And these sleep disorders are extremely common. They are serious and they are not diagnosed, and they are, most of them are treatable. As we might know, about 70 million of Americans have a clinically significant sleep issue. Almost one third of adult population may have sleep issues, but we don't talk about it, and we feel that it can be normal. So as we saw, the sleep insomnia has a lot of effects on our mind and body. If it is, especially if the insomnia is chronic, especially in 10 to 15% of cases, it can have the impact on the functioning of the brain. It not only impairs our memory, concentration, mathematical skills, visual attention, and many other skills. Classically, a young man comes to my clinic, says, "Doctor, मुझे याद नहीं रह रहा है. Doctor, I cannot remember things. I forget where I have kept my keychain. I forget what I have promised my wife," and so on. So sleep is one of the most important thing for memory issues in young people, and also multitasking. And second thing
కాదు,
is,
నేను
sleep
అప్లై
disorders are
చేయలేదు. వాళ్ళు
serious.
ఫోన్ చేసి సరే నేను చూస్తామన్నారు. వాళ్ళు ఏం చెప్పలే. ఇప్పుడే చెప్పింది ఫోన్ చేసి. రిక్రూట్
Second is, these sleep disorders are serious. The patients who are having chronic insomnia, they report a decreased quality of life, memory and attention problems, and decreased physical health. There is an increased incidence of motor vehicle crashes in patients with obstructive sleep apnea, and it has a big direct cost on the economy as well. What are the normal sleep requirements? As we can see in this slide, newborns and infants need almost 20 hours of sleep. Toddlers need 10 to 12 hours of sleep. Preschoolers need 10 to 11 hours. School-age children 8 to 12 hours. And as we grow adult, we need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And as we age, even a 6 hours of sleep is enough for us. So it is important to sleep at least for 6 hours. However, a few people may feel fresh with a lesser sleep. There may be little bit variations. So coming to the normal physiology of sleep, whenever one sleeps, we go through the NREM phase, that is a non-rapid eye movement phase, wherein we go into the deep sleep, and then there is a REM phase where the body is more relaxed, but it is not a deep sleep. So based on this proportion of NREM and REM sleep, we decide the quality of sleep. As we know that Benjamin Franklin has said, early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. I know many of us are working in US shifts, are working in little late shifts, so we are not able to sleep on time. But it's very, very important to sleep on proper time as much as possible. If you're finishing your work by 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, try to sleep immediately. Don't use mobile. Don't see any videos on your mobile, or just to relax your mind. You have to sleep as early as possible. That is because we have a biological clock. There are certain sleep hormones like melatonin, which are released at 9 o'clock in the night, and certain hormones like steroids. These are all released in the morning 6 o'clock, which give us the feeling of energy. So if you say that no, I am sleeping for 8 hours, I sleep at 2 o'clock in the night and I wake up at 10 o'clock in the morning, that means you are disturbing your biological clock. So it's very important to sleep on time, because a lot of brainstem, that is a small brain nuclei, are involved in sleep, and they keep on releasing these hormones like histamine, 5-hydroxytryptamine, and norepinephrine. So many hormones, acetylcholine, which are very, very important. They work well only if you follow a proper timing. So sleeping very late is not good for health. As you can see, this is a slide showing a sleep study wherein we see the eye movements. So this basically, the sleep study is done to diagnose patients who are having sleep issues. Suppose a patient, somebody says, I sleep daily for 8 hours, but in the morning I don't feel fresh, and the whole day I feel sleepy. Then we may have to suspect something called sleep apnea, where the person is sleeping for 8 hours, but there has been an obstruction, because of which the sleep is not getting completed. So sleep study helps us in certain cases to diagnose the causes of sleep dysfunction. Coming to insomnia. Insomnia is an experience of inadequate or poor quality sleep characterized by one or more of following. It can be sleep onset insomnia, that is, somebody may say, I cannot fall asleep. Somebody may say, I cannot maintain my sleep. I wake up in the 1 o'clock in the night, then I can't sleep. Some people may say, I can't sleep beyond 4 o'clock. I have to wake up early. Some people say, we don't feel fresh after morning. That is a non-restorative sleep. And acute insomnia is quite common for one night to few weeks, wherein there is some incident in the life or some stress or fear. And chronic insomnia, at least 3 nights per week for 1 month or more, is also seen in 10 to 15% of cases. I want to quote this article from India Today a few years back, why Indians are sleeping less. So they did a research in Indians, why we are all sleeping less. The one reason, as I said, some of us work in US shifts, they work late, then after that they want to see some mobile, YouTube and whatnot. So that is what is disturbing the sleep and not causing effective sleep. Another thing is, many of us are studying, so we are working and then we want to study late night. And as we know, there are late night parties, late night groups, which and some many of the people say that we feel more calm in the night, so we want to study in the night, we want to do some work in night, but that will take a toll on our health. So it is very important to sleep early. It is important to understand that few medicines can also cause insomnia. So if you are taking any of the medicines and you're having sleep issues, please don't forget to check with your doctor. Is it the medicine that is causing the sleep issues in you? So what is sleep hygiene? So sleep hygiene are basically, these are habits and practices to promote good sleep. So there are very, very simple things like waking up at same time of the day, sleeping early, sleeping at the same time of the day. In the night, you have to avoid caffeine, that is tea, coffee, and alcohol, nicotine, when after 5 o'clock in the evening. If you have these after 5 o'clock in the evening, you will not, you are stimulating your brain, so you may have issues in sleeping. The second is late evening binge of alcohol can also affect your sleep. The most important thing is heavy meals too close to the bedtime. We see that some of us have our dinner at 10 o'clock in the night. That is going to affect our quality of sleep. So you should have dinner 2 to 3 hours prior to sleeping. So try to have it before 8 o'clock and then sleep. A regular exercise, especially in the morning or afternoon, that may help. And if you do a rigorous exercise in the evening, that may actually interfere with sleep. Whenever you're sleeping, make sure the environment is cozy, minimize the sounds, light. And suppose in your bedroom, you should not see any TV, you should not use mobile, you should not read. That is only for sleeping. You move the alarm clock away from the bed if it is a source of distraction. Another important thing is, if you're not getting sleep, you can just take a warm water bath in the night, or you can, or in the olden days, they used to ask to take oil bath. Especially in the cold environment, you can apply sesame oil to your body before taking bath. That is also one important easy way to make people sleep, especially in children, because in children, if they are having sleep issues, we can't give them many of the medicine, much of medicines. We can try this oil bath technique. So coming to our next part of our talk, that is how do we deal with our mind, and how mindfulness or any kind of meditation is important when it comes to brain's health, or it comes to sleep, and overall our emotional well-being. So normally we know that we deal with mind in three ways. Right from our childhood, we have been told ki if you are angry or you are disturbed, you just distract your mind, you listen to some music, or you chant some name, some form, do something and just distract your mind. Do some chanting or do some other work, go to a movie. So that distraction helps, but it is only temporary. So only for that time I will distract my mind and I may just forget the problem. The second thing is suppression. Many people resort to this unwholesome way wherein they overeat or they have alcohol, smoking, drugs just to suppress the stress, but that is going to take a toll on our health. So this is not at all recommended. The third way which we deal with our mind is reaction. We keep on reacting. I'm not happy because, if my wife changes slightly, I will be happy. If my boss is not the same, I will be happy. So we keep on reacting. We keep on blaming people for our problems. But the best way to deal with mind is to face the truth. So what do you mean by facing the truth? What do you mean by becoming aware of the reality? How to accept the situation as it is without reacting to it. So we are going to learn a simple technique for that. As we know, the law of nature is unchangeable and impartial. If you sow a neem seed, you are bound to get a neem plant. And if you sow a mango seed, you are bound to get a mango plant. So if your mind is full of anger, full of agitation, or full of hatred, then you cannot feel peaceful. If your mind is full of love, joy, happiness, gratitude, then you will feel happy and peaceful. We all have to understand this, and this is very, very important. So we are going to study one small technique, practice one small technique that is a basic technique of mindfulness. It is called Anapanasati. Anapana is a Pali word. The word ana is the breath coming in, and the word apana is the breath going out. And sati means awareness. So we are just going to become aware of our own breathing as it is, as it comes in and as it goes out. Why we are going to practice this technique? Because the most important thing is breath is the reality. You cannot imagine your breath. The breath is always with you. You cannot observe tomorrow's breath or yesterday's breath. So breath and mind are strongly connected. See what happens to your breath when you get angry or disturbed, the breath becomes fast, right? So when we start observing the breath as it is, we learn to calm down our mind. If we observe the breath, we are training our mind to calm down and to remain in the reality of this moment. And the most important thing is breath is universal. You cannot say this is Indian breath, this is American breath. Anybody can observe breath. So we are going to practice this, and we are going to remain mindful of our own breathing now. So I request you to sit still till the end, eyes closed, and you sit relaxed. You try focusing stress-free. So you can just sit straight, just close your eyes. And when the eyes are closed, you don't need the glasses. Just focus on the entrance of your nostril. I'm going to play some instructions. Just focus on the natural breathing, the breath that comes in and that goes out. Natural breath as it is, without changing it or without adding anything to it. I'm going to play some instructions now. Sit relaxed. Relax your body, back and neck straight, shoulders relaxed.
Now let us practice Anapana for about 10 minutes. Practice Anapana. Sit comfortably, in any posture that suits you. Keep your back and your neck straight. Keep your eyes gently closed. Those who wear spectacles should take off their spectacles during meditation period. Keep your mouth gently closed and focus your entire attention on the area at the entrance of the nostrils. The area at the entrance of the nostrils. And remain aware of every breath coming in, every breath going out. Natural breath, normal breath, as it is. If it is long, it is long. If it is short, it is short. Passing through left nostril. Passing through right nostril. Or through both the nostrils. Just remain aware, do nothing. Just remain aware. Alert, attentive, vigilant, remain alert, attentive, vigilant. constantly aware of the breath, the incoming breath, the outgoing breath, incoming breath, outgoing breath. Keep your attention steadfastly fixed on this area, the entrance of the nostrils. Like a gatekeeper, like a watchman, aware of every breath entering the nostril, aware of every breath moving out of the nostrils. Alert, attentive, vigilant. Incoming breath, outgoing breath, natural breath, pure breath, nothing but breath. Kavatu Sabda Mangalam, Kavatu Sabda Mangalam, Kavatu Sabda Mangalam. Good. Good. Be happy. Be happy. Be happy.
You can gently open your eyes. So all of you were able to feel your breath. If anybody has any questions, they can ask. Or you can type it in the box.
Yeah, guys, if you have any doubts, you can type in the chat box and I will ask on your behalf if you don't want to.
So there are a lot of benefits of this meditation that we will see. But whenever we practice this meditation, there are certain difficulties which we face. I think we need to mute everyone. There is some disturbance.
Yes.
Can we do that?
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah, so whenever we do this meditation, first thing you must have heard the teacher says in the end that Bhavatu Sabba Mangalam. Means when we meditate, at the end of meditation, we make a wish that may all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings take care of themselves well. May they come out of their problems, illnesses. So after the meditation, whenever you practice at home, you can just make a wish for the peace and happiness of beings. And you must have heard people say sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. It means we also feel the same. May all beings be happy. So whenever we practice this meditation, all of you must have realized that there are certain difficulties. The one major difficulty is the mind wanders too much. The teacher has told us to observe the breath, but the moment we start observing, the mind wanders away. Again, the teacher says, bring it back. Okay, we bring it back. Again, the mind wanders away. So we know that we all have a monkey mind. It is a chatterbox. It just wanders. And what we are doing is we are training the mind to remain in the reality of this moment. Then again it wanders. Again we bring it back. So we are developing awareness of how our mind is working, right? So the first one is wandering mind. The second one is we feel agitation. Why I'm doing this? We feel like restlessness, doing something else, or some doubt will come. Why am I practicing this? I have been breathing from so many years. How it will help by just observing my breath? We may crave for some food or something else to do, or we may have aversion towards something. We may feel sleepy. Many of us who practice it, initially we just sleep off because the mind calms down and we may feel sleepy. These are the difficulties. Whenever these difficulties come, how to deal with these difficulties? One is, if you're feeling too much sleepy or the mind is wandering too much, you can work on a few intentional breaths, a few hard breaths. That is going to help you to come back to the breath and then come back to the normal, natural, soft breathing. Just for a few breaths, you can practice a hard breathing. And still, if you are feeling sleepy, you check your posture. If you are sitting bent, taking support of your back, you may feel sleepy. So it is very important to sit straight and shoulders relaxed, back and neck straight. So how this meditation helps? It not only helps us in staying in the present moment, but automatically we keep on regulating our emotions. What happens when we practice this meditation daily, and in real life, if suppose we are angry or we get agitated, then automatically we start observing the breath and we calm down ourselves. Rather than increasing our agitation or increasing our anger, we learn to calm down, come back to the breath, come back to the reality of this moment and calm down. So this is an initial part of the meditation. This will help us in increasing our positive emotions and reducing the negativities like anger and hatred and all that. Our ability to work will increase because we are training the mind to remain in the reality, right? Otherwise, it's always wandering. So we can't work efficiently. It also helps in psychosomatic illnesses. It may help in sleeping also. Somebody who is not getting a proper sleep at night, you can lie down normally on your bed, just relax and focus on your breathing and let the sleep come whenever it comes. because we know the mind doesn't get rest even in sleep. Even in sleep, the mind is always wandering. It is creating some thoughts, some dreams, some emotions, and it gets rest only when it is in the reality of this moment and it is not reacting. So this is a very simple technique which you can practice daily. And when you lie down on your bed, you can just observe your breath in the night. It helps in better memory and concentration. We also teach this technique to the school children, wherein it helps a lot to build their confidence and their memory, their concentration, creativity, and so on. But one has to practice daily. Just doing once for 10 minutes will not help. So this Anapana is the initial part of a technique called Vipassana meditation. Why I'm telling you this? Because now mindfulness is extremely important to learn to keep our mind calm. And that is very, very important for our mental health. So a few words about Vipassana. When you learn this Anapana meditation, you can also learn Vipassana. It's a non-sectarian technique. There are no rites or rituals. People can, all the faith can adopt, as the technique is based on the universal laws of nature. And the benefit is here and now. Like suppose somebody gets angry and then you start your breath, you observe your breath and you observe your sensations. This moment you can come out of your anger, you can come out of your boredom. So it's a moment to moment thing. It is a self transformation through self observation. So these Vipassana courses are conducted through 10 days residential camps, which are taught free of charge all over the world. In Hyderabad also, there are a couple of centers in which first 3 days you have to practice Anapana, and then you learn Vipassana. I will be sharing the website of this technique. You can check it out and apply for a 10 days residential course after the COVID crisis reduces. If anybody
Doctor,
has
there
any
is a
questions,
query from one of the employees.
Yeah.
There's a query from one of the employees. She says that she had Bell's palsy around 8 years back. And she has recovered from it. But even today, she's feeling weak and is in too much cold area. When she's in too much of cold area, her eyes become small. Is there something that can be done for this?
Yeah, so basically we need to see you. Some patients of Bell's palsy, they develop a small amount of weakness which never improves. And also there is an aberrant regeneration of the nerve, which can cause these symptoms, the small eyes and all that. So you need to consult a neurologist personally and discuss what is the exact issue. And sometimes it can be treated with some interventions. So I will request you to ask any questions related to what we have discussed now. And in the end, we can have all the questions about general neurology and whatever, right? So I will request you to ask questions about what meditation we did or about the sleep, whatever we have just discussed now.
So doctor, I had a question. Basically, now you said that there are many people who are having stress, and because of that they have sleep disorders and insomnia. So how far are the patients at an advantage when they are practicing this Vipassana and
Yeah, there is a lot of studies on this. In Nimans,
it's scientifically proven.
Yes. In Nimans, we have done study for 6 years, in which there is a study on quality of sleep in Vipassana meditators. Normally, the efficiency of sleep is about 85%, but when we practice Vipassana and Anapana, the efficiency goes as high as 95%. So Vipassana meditators sleep better, and there have been lot of studies all over the world in this about this technique. The Kiran Bedi had started the center of Vipassana in Tihar jail, because those are the serious criminals who have done serious crimes. Since 1986, the center has been functional till the COVID, and it has helped a lot. There have been studies in North American jails, various parts of India, which have shown that this Vipassana and mindfulness helps a lot to improve the quality of sleep and also improve the efficiency of your work.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is a very, very relevant question. And most important thing, what this Vipassana was taught by Buddha 2,500 years ago. What he has told is whatever the best proof is, you practice it and you get the benefit, right? So in your daily life, if you practice this Anapana, whatever we practice now for a few weeks, you get so many benefits in your daily life, and your life changes. If you practice Vipassana, your daily life changes, my life changes. That is the most important thing. That is the most important experiential truth that helps us, right? So any more questions about sleep or meditation? If you want to ask later, we can go on to the next topic. That is, what are the causes of headache and how to prevent headaches. So as we see in this diagram, there are different types of headaches. Some people get a pain near the ears and near the angle of jaw. That can be because of the temporomandibular joint dysfunction. There's a joint here which moves when we chew, and this dysfunction can also cause headache in this area. Typically, we hear sinus headaches are in these areas, wherever is shown here. The cluster headache happens an intense pain behind the eye, which lasts typically for less than 3 hours. A tension headache is a band of pain like this, or a heaviness on the head, which is a squeezing or heavy kind of sensation that may last for hours to days. Migraine is classically one-sided headache, but it can be throughout the head also, which classically we will be discussing more. And even a neck pain, a cervicogenic headache because of bad posture, can also cause headaches. So the next thing is, the most common headache, as we know, is migraine. And you would be amazed to know that WHO has placed migraine as one of the 10 most disabling medical problems on the earth. So not the diabetes is not, there is no hypertension in this list, but there is migraine. So it is a very common disorder, and it is fourth most common in women. As we can see, it affects 1 billion people worldwide. That is 1/6 of population. 1 in 4 homes, 1 in 5 women, and so on. It's very, very common. And the prevalence of migraine peaks during the productive years of our age. It is much more common in women because of the hormonal changes. And typically it is highest in girls after the puberty and among women aged 30 to 50. And then it reduces as the people grow and after the post-menopausal period, as you can see in this graph. Coming to symptoms of migraine, as you can see on the top: fatigue, headache, light sensitivity, difficulty in concentrating, nausea, vomiting. So many symptoms of headache. A few symptoms can happen before the onset of migraine, that is irritability, depression, food craving, sensitivity to light and sound, problem in concentrating, fatigue, nausea. A few patients of headache have an aura before the headache, that is before migraine. They may see some stars in front of their eyes, or some zigzag lines, or some blurring of vision. There can be numbness or tingling in particular parts of body. Then comes the headache, which is typically very, very severe. It can be throbbing or a pounding headache, which is associated with nausea, vomiting, giddiness, sometimes tearing, neck pain, stiffness. And then after that, there is a prodrome where there is fatigue and inability to concentrate and all these things. So migraine is a very, very disabling headache, which happens in episodes, and these are all the phases of migraine. The most common triggers in migraine, as we might have heard, these are hormonal changes in women. They get triggered during the menstrual cycle, weather changes, certain kinds of food, drinks like groundnuts or cashew nuts, some kind of fish, some kind of wine can trigger migraine. Strong odors can trigger. A disturbed sleep, if you don't sleep properly in the night, next day you may get migraine. Dehydration, some contraceptive pills, stress, anxiety, exertion can trigger this. Something called footballer's migraine, where you do an intense physical exertion, and then also that can trigger headaches, bright lights, loud noises, stress, and also hereditary factors. So in about 40% of cases, the migraine is hereditary. And because of the hormonal changes and the menstrual cycle, certain hormones in women, as we know that the migraines are much more common in women, and then they reduce during the menopause. So what are the lifestyle behaviors to prevent these migraines? Because you know that medicines are effective only to reduce the frequency of migraine. Medicines cannot cure your migraines completely. It is only to reduce the intensity and frequency of your migraines. So the most important thing to prevent migraine, as we saw, the first is a sleep routine. You sleep early in the night, and then you wake up, have a fixed schedule, so that you feel fresh in the morning. The most important thing about sleep is you should feel fresh after you wake up in the morning. Sometimes even 6 hours sleep will be enough. Sometimes you may need a little more sleep, that is 7 to 8 hours. So if you have a consistent meal time, you eat whenever you are hungry. The most important thing, what has happened now, we are all living a mechanical life. Morning, we don't have time to have our breakfast, so we eat some cornflakes, or we eat some have some tea, coffee, juice, etc. That is not going to help you. Whenever you're hungry, you have to eat within 15 to 20 minutes, and you have to eat solid food. You can't just have liquids and water when you have a good hunger. That will only kill your hunger. So most important is eat solid food. Like traditionally we eat rice or roti or ragi or whatever preparation you have been eating in your area. So eating well is very important. Eating when you are hungry is very, very important, and eating enough quantity of food is also important. We see especially some women, they don't want to gain weight, so they will say, no, I will eat less. I have a good hunger, but I will eat less. Then that may also trigger headache. So after food, there comes water. We always hear a doctor saying you drink 4 liters of water or 5 liters of water. Okay, but is it possible if you are sitting in Bangalore, you are working in AC and you are not sweating? So the best way is to drink water as per your hunger and to quench your thirst, not just mechanically keep on drinking water the whole day. That will only kill your hunger and harm you. But don't ignore, whenever you are thirsty, you drink water. So as per your physical activity and as per the climate you stay, you may need a little more water or a little less water. So the next important thing is exercise.
Sorry, doctor. Sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt, because you raised this point here.
Yeah,
Drinking
please.
water without feeling thirsty, you should not do that, is what you mentioned.
Absolutely. Yes,
But
yes.
as per some doctors, they say that minimum of 8 liters of water should be taken per day. So how will
8 liters. Yeah, 8 liters is impossible, madam. 8 liters you can't have, and that is what I'm telling. That is not needed. There's no fixed rule in medicine. You have to respect your body. Suppose you are working in Rajasthan in hot sun, you may need 5 to 6 liters of water. But if you are sitting in AC in Bangalore, even 2 liters of water is enough for you. So there is no fixed rule. You have to use your wisdom here. This is very, very important. Excess of anything is not good for your body. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And when you mentioned about migraine, if it is an hereditary source of migraine that you got from your parents or your elders, so even that can be cured when you're attending these meditation sessions? Or
Yeah. So see, basically what we explain to our patients, the migraine patients have a lesser threshold for headache. Suppose a patient who doesn't have migraine has this much of threshold. So if he sleeps late, if that person doesn't eat on time, he will not get migraine. But a patient is with migraine has a lesser threshold. So even if they travel in sun a little bit, or there is little stress, or you sleep late, then you get the chemical imbalance, and that will trigger the migraine. One way is to take care of all these things. That is, you, as I'm telling you, eat well, You eat when you're hungry, you drink water as per need, you sleep early, correct? And whatever more things I will discuss. So these are avoiding the triggers. At the same time, you can increase the threshold. So this increased threshold can be temporarily done by medicines or with meditation. So what you are doing with mindfulness meditation is you are increasing the threshold of your mind. Whatever disturbances are there in life, there is a fight with spouse, there is a lot of work at office, a lot of stress, but I have increased the capacity of my mind. I have made my mind strong. Whatever is happening outside, that will affect me, but not to the extent that I get headache. You got it? So both the things are important. One is taking care of your routine, taking care of triggers. Another is working on increasing the threshold. That can be done with relaxation, meditation, yoga, pranayama, so many things. Correct, ma'am?
Yeah.
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 So the next thing is very important thing is exercise. So what we see that many of us, we don't exercise, so we have to exercise. So how much exercise to do? The WHO has told at least 20 to 30 minutes of exercise for 5 days a week. This is a general guideline. But what is the most important thing while doing exercises? You should not feel tired after exercise. We see some people, they over exercise so much, and they get very tired. That is not right. You should do exercise, after which you should feel fresh. So some people, especially lean and thin people, for them the best exercise would be walking, yoga, slow exercises. If they do weightlifting and all, that may not be good for them. So as per your body nature, you have to choose the best exercise for yourself. So somebody may like swimming, somebody may like yoga, somebody may like gymming, but understand that do it to the extent that you feel fresh after exercise and not tired. The next important thing in the migraine is about the balanced diet. So what has happened nowadays, if we are all eating whatever we are eating is a fast food. Even in the breakfast, some of us eat muesli, cornflakes and oats. Okay, but whatever is packed, no, comes packed in the market, and that promises you iron, vitamins, and calcium. You don't buy that. Whatever is a traditional and local breakfast, that one you have to eat. Like just think what my grandmother used to eat. Suppose I'm in Bangalore, I will eat idli, dosa, pongal, and whatever is traditionally being eaten. And if I'm in Maharashtra, I will eat pohe, upma, paratha. If I go to Punjab, I will eat puri, paratha, and all that. So as per the climate, whatever traditional breakfast is there, that you have to eat. Even the lunch. Suppose whatever we have been eating, local food, traditional food, and seasonal food, this is most important. There is no mechanical thing in that, correct? So that is the most important thing. You just have to think what my grandmother must have eaten at this point, and you eat the same thing, right? So using cold pressed oils is very, very important. Nowadays we see most of us are using refined oils. Those are not good for health, because those are hydrogenated fats, and those are heated to 400 degrees so that somebody can store them for 6 months and all that. The best one is the cold pressed oils, which is a groundnut oil, sesame oil, or whichever climate you are staying. If you are staying in Kerala, you may use coconut oil. You are staying in Maharashtra, you may use groundnut oil. In South India, sesame oil and groundnut oil are the best. And also use of homemade ghee is very, very important. Nowadays, we have made cholesterol as villains, but those are not villains. Anything in too much excess is bad, and too less also bad. So we have to follow a middle path.
Doctor, we have a query from one of the employees.
Yes.
The employee says that if we have severe headache coupled with giddiness, especially while getting up, so can that be vertigo also, or just migraine?
Yeah, so usually migraine patients do face giddiness. So it is more likely to be a migraine headache. And if you only feel giddiness, like the word vertigo means spinning sensation. If you feel that the room is spinning classically for a few seconds or minutes, then we call it as vertigo. Even patients with migraine experience some amount of giddiness and vertigo. Yes.
Thank you, doctor.
Thank you. So these are the main things about finding out your trigger: exercise, water, sleep, diet. Then a certain relaxation techniques, what we discussed, this Anapana meditation is very, very simple. And then if somebody gets, in spite of this, somebody gets frequent headaches, then we prescribe some kind of medicines. So one medicine is called preventive medicines, which are taken daily for 3 to 6 months. And some medicines are called rescue medicines. That is, we take it only when you get severe headache. So those are like painkillers. So this is in short the management tips for migraine. After you find out the trigger, follow a good sleep hygiene, you manage your weight, exercise daily, yoga, meditation, and whenever migraine comes, suppose somebody is getting migraines once in a 1 month or 2 months, then it is very important that the moment you get headache, you take the medicine. Because if you take medicine after 2 to 3 hours, medicine will not work. And always do not overuse the pain medicine. Correct? Our goal in by doing this lifestyle and meditation is to avoid taking the painkillers. Correct? And if in spite of that somebody is getting frequent headaches, then we try preventive medicines. So thank you very much. It is a pleasure to get connected with all of you. This is the website for the Vipassana meditation. There are a couple of centers near Hyderabad also. You can just go through that. I had done this 10 days Vipassana course in 2007, and it helps me a lot in managing my stress and helping to deal with my mind and help my patients as well.
Doctor, we have a query from one of the employees.
Yeah.
The employee says that if someone is getting regular headache, how should we get our disease diagnosed? Any specific test to know if we have migraine or not? How do we know?
Yeah, so classically, as we saw, migraine is an episodic headache which comes in episodes. Like it comes 4 days a month or 2 days a month, 5-6 days a month. So if it is an episodic headache and happening for quite some time, couple of months or years, then it is more likely to be a migraine. So best way is you talk to your neurologist. Nowadays online also you can just talk and neurologist will tell you whether you need any test. Generally, diagnosis of migraine doesn't need any test. It is a clinical diagnosis. Most of the cases we don't need a scan, and the neurologist can tell you this is most likely migraine. So you follow these things, find out the triggers, and if that works, if that reduces the frequency, then we can say that it is migraine. So every time you don't need a scan and all that.
So there's another query, doctor, another employee. The employee says that the employee realized since 6 months, the right eye is not opening completely. It is almost 25 to 30% closed, and wanted to ask whether it can be back to normal, whether that eye can be got back to normal.
Yes, it depends on the cause. So we need to evaluate you and see what is the cause of drooping of eyelid or why the eye is looking small. It can be treated. Yeah.
Okay. Doctor, so how far is it safe to take sleeping pills? Like, is it good enough, safe enough to take sleeping pills?
So there are a lot of natural ways to get sleep, but if in spite of that one is not getting sleep, one may take sleeping pills. But understanding that, you may get used to it. So the best way is through meditation, Anapana, Vipassana, sleep hygiene. There are certain practices in Ayurveda like oil bath, oil pulling, certain home remedies also help in getting sleep.
I think it's pretty much, Doctor, the employees' queries have already been answered. Thank you so much for attending this session and giving us such an